All right, everybody. It's the Working Fans Podcast. And everybody out there, hey, happy Veterans Day. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. Thank you for tuning in. And for anyone who's tuning in that's not subscribed yet to, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. We appreciate all the support we can get. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. We're going to talk about the rise of LA Knight. We're going to talk about NXT to CW, what this also means for the NWA. But before we do that, let's talk about how your weekend was last weekend. AJ, you opened up for Mr. Jason Alexander.
It was a great show. A lot of people came out to donate. We were doing a great event for children's cancer, which is always something that's near and dear to my heart. I think it's important for people to help out with that and to make sure these kids have the resources that they need to. But Jason Alexander was amazing. He took the time to talk to those of us that were on the show with him. He was very friendly, very fun. We had over 1,000 people in the audience, so it was a nice opportunity. You don't always get opportunities like that. So thank you to Jason Alexander. Thank you to the people that showed up, and thank you to the Working Fans Podcast for always having our back.
I imagine that was a long day.
It was a very long day. Thankfully, I always have a streamline of Dubby going straight into my body, and you too can also have it by going to dubby.gg. Use the promo code FANSWORKING, save 10%. I'm a Calio cream guy. It's important for me to always have that in my shaker. If you look and we put that down and we look at the picture here, I'm actually drinking it as we speak.
Yes.
I don't go far without it. I suggest you do the same. Remember, dubby.gg, that's the website. Fans Working, that's how you save 10%. And make sure you tell them AJ Strangebrew sent you.
All right. And that's how he's doing, Randy. And as for the other comments, Randy, we will get to you as we go on with the show. In fact, I think the comment Randy does have, what happens with LA Knight? We'll talk about that in a minute, but let's talk about the rise of LA Knight first. AJ, this guy, when did he first come on your scene? Was it Impact Wrestling?
The first time I remember seeing him is definitely, I want to say it was Impact Wrestling. He worked his way up to, obviously, to the World Championship there. He had a really good presence. Unfortunately, there was a lot of transition during that time period and a lot of shenanigans. He then went to NWA, which is where he also did really well. And he puts the work in. This is something he obviously loves doing. He started off, for those of you who don't know, in the WWE, in their developmental. He did their...
he was in developmental for a little while.
Yeah, he did Tough Enough back in the day. He's even on... If you go back and you watch Triple H's old workout video, he's actually one of the guys in the back of the Triple H workout video. And he has always put the work in. He's somebody who has at different times in his life done different careers. He's been an EMT, stuff of that nature, always working on the side, working towards wrestling.
He was on that reality show Hero with The Rock.
Absolutely. Well, people forget he's 40 years old.
Yeah.
He didn't start doing this yesterday. He's worked his way up and worked hard to get to where he's at.
And as Joe talked about Championship Wrestling for Hollywood, he also even had a brief run with Percy Pringle, Paul Bearer. And so when you think about like that and you talk about the stuff, he's done, as an EMT, all these things, he was always a hustler. He's always working. But what I find fascinating is once he really started, probably we'll say, hitting that stride in TNA, his character hasn't changed too much. Like he's talked about this, like he's tried to basically, he knew it was working, so he didn't deviate too much. My point is he believed in himself and, he kept working.
Well, he's very similar, and I know there's already comparisons to Stone Cold Steve Austin and some of the stuff he borrows from The Rock and stuff of that nature, but there's more of a deeper comparison to him and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Rock was a blue chipper who at a relatively young age was able to succeed and able to come in and do well. He worked very similar path to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold obviously started off in Texas, worked his way up, came to WCW, worked through the Dangerous Alliance, worked through the Hollywood Blondes, paid his dues, and then became an overnight sensation in the WWE after that, King of the Ring. Very similar for LA Knight, how he paid his dues, worked his ass off, and now people are treating him like an overnight sensation. Oh, look how far you've come in a few months. No, look how far you've come over 20 years.
Absolutely. And, what do we think about The Rock's Stone Cold ripoff claims? I think he's answered this himself. Of course, he's been influenced by The Rock and Stone Cold. He grew up watching that. He probably talks like that in his everyday life once in a while, and he's turned it up. Obviously, everybody, I know we're going. Ric Flair, Buddy Rogers. I mean, we could go on and on. Muhammad Ali.
Jerry Lawler, for Christ's sakes. He was not the original King of Memphis, for Christ's sakes. Every person, Hulk Hogan, Dusty Rhodes, ripping off Billy Graham. My God, it's professional wrestling. Holy shit. If you don't borrow from somebody, you're not doing something right. Guess what? At different times in my early career, I wrestled in Shawn Michaels lookalike tights and called myself Little Mr. Perfect. Everybody rips off people's shit. If you can't get over that and appreciate the tools that people have, I mean, for Christ's sakes, how many people have ripped off Eddie Guerrero in the last freaking decade? For Christ's sakes, let it go.
I will say this, too, just to get us back on track a little bit here, because we talked about the early days of NWA, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, TNA, all that stuff. But just now, let's fast forward a little bit. He goes to NXT. Right? He gets a new name, LA Knight. He makes it work. He's a heel. He becomes a babyface. He's doing great. And then we get, I think we've already had it in the comments once, but here we go, Max Dupree. And it's not what he's looking for, obviously. He's admitted that he wasn't a fan of that. But as he said, some things happen. We won't talk about that. He asked, can we still go back to do an LA Knight? And I think that's an important thing here. We talked about how he stayed the course before. He took opportunities, he took chances, but he believed in himself and he wasn't afraid to speak up and talk to the necessary people. Hey, can we do this? If he didn't do this, we probably don't get where we are today.
All the great wrestlers, the stories that you hear is them not being afraid to go, hey, can I try this? Hey, can we try to make this work? All the way back to Hogan in the 80s and his close relationship with Vince. Stone Cold Steve Austin not being afraid to say, hey, can I do this? Even The Undertaker went away from the Undertaker gimmick and said, hey, can I try the American Badass? Can I try this version of the Undertaker? Right. These are people that knew who they were and weren't afraid. Same thing with Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was never afraid to say, hey, this isn't the right path for me. We got to go in this direction. Bret Hart. So you can go down the whole list of great wrestlers. And LA Knight is smart enough to be able to know what's good for his character. He's also smart enough to know he's got a limited window.
Right.
Because of the age that he's finally gotten here, there's a limited window. My biggest fear with LA Knight is that now he's already going to be on his downward trajectory. And the reason why is because what's next for him? Yeah, you went after Roman Reigns. You lost to Roman Reigns. Who else is there on SmackDown to go after?
Absolutely. And you jumped just a slight bit ahead of me because I had one other point I wanted to bring up, and I was going to get exactly where you are now. It's just the Bray Wyatt feud. And I just wanted to bring that up because if you look at also how that was set up, he was really set up to kind of fail. He was set up almost kind of be the fodder. Maybe not fail, might be harsh, but he was not the focal point of that. Bray Wyatt was the focal point. And hey, God bless Bray's soul. But what happened was, unlike other people who sometimes got overshadowed by Bray, LA Knight didn't get overshadowed. If anything, LA got over.
Well, it's a similar story to Bryan Danielson. Where the WWE, when people get over organically, if the machine isn't behind them, sometimes they have a tendency of going, oh, wait a minute, that's not what's right for you. We tell you what's right for you. Yeah. Here's the direction that we're going in. And it's nothing against Bray Wyatt. Even Bray Wyatt went through it, to be honest with you, the late, great Bray Wyatt. The reason why he went through it was, once again, he got over more than they expected him to. So all of a sudden, they were afraid to really get behind him. And it took several attempts to really get behind him.
So, Everybody's already excited to talk about what we had just set up prior here. Obviously, where are we going next with Roman? You were ready to jump on. And look at these comments here. Joe, Seth Rollins, and that other championship, right? Just
Not
one.
on the same show.
LA Knight and Logan Paul for the U.S. Championship. I want to get to that one a little bit here, too, because I talked to you the other day about Gunther and how we built up, and you mentioned Logan Paul. They're still on the same show. And I said, well, we can always change things. As Randy brings this up now, and obviously you talked about it to me yesterday, too, I think back to when they were in that Money in the Bank, and they had those little interactions with each other, and Logan Paul made the kind of comments like, look how long it took you to get here. Look how quick it was for me. And the more I think about it, to you, AJ, and to you, Randy, in the comments, I'm going to say I'm really gaining on this idea, and I think this is probably where we should go for WrestleMania because you're going to have a lot of buzz with both these guys. I say let them cost each other in the Rumble, and hey, yeah, Logan Paul, the guy that nobody really wants to be there, who's there and overachieving against a guy who's busted his ass and wasn't supposed to be there.
It's a big money matchup. It really is. To be honest with you, Logan Paul versus LA Knight could end up overshadowing whichever night that they're on, the main event. If they're no matter who's the main event that night, those two could overshadow them because of how popular LA Knight is and because of how unpopular Logan Paul is.
Yeah. This is a side little side quest here real quick. Borrow a line from Freddie Prinze Jr. But could Logan Paul and LA Knight main event night one? Is that possible?
They absolutely could. Typically, it is for a title.
Right.
They could definitely make the U.S. Championship relevant for the first time since John Cena.
Yeah. I mean, and Gunther's already did that with the Intercontinental title. I just want to say for a second, hats off to WWE. I just thought about, because people have mentioned this, how about this for two secondary title matches at WrestleMania 40? Logan Paul and LA Knight, like we just said, for the U.S. title. Brock Lesnar versus Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship.
That could be the first time that those two secondary belts completely overshadow whoever's in the main event. Unless, of course, you do have The Rock and Roman Reigns, because it's going to be awful hard to overshadow that.
No doubt. All right, we spent a lot of time on this today. Actually, it kind of flew by, but I feel like we got a lot in here talking about LA Knight. So I want to get to some other stuff that we're going to talk about today. Some more movings, some more shakings. We're talking about NXT. It was announced that they're going to the CW. All right. And it was a couple weeks ago that we heard NWA was going to the CW. And then we heard some rumors that a possible cocaine spot might have put the kibosh on that, or it might just be on the CW app right now. I don't know, man. I'm happy that NXT is getting a deal. I'm happy that people are taking notice of this.
Dave, we talk a lot about Tony Khan's screw-ups.
Right.
We don't talk enough about Billy Corrigan's screw-ups.
Right.
At some point, Billy Corrigan's got to realize that the CW, that's a family network, isn't looking for a product with prostitutes and cocaine.
Sure, and I think I said Eric Bischoff covered this well in a very fair moment. He talked about first, too, to be fair, how sometimes pro wrestling is unfairly scrutinized, that other scripted TV shows, you can do rape, you can do murders. But
how huge was Breaking Bad? Breaking Bad is a school teacher who's cooking meth.
Right. But here's the thing. And the thing is that where it gets gray is because sometimes pro wrestling is, going towards, families. And I'm going to get to this a little bit here, too, in a minute, because this is kind of where I want to end on this, too. Can both shows exist on the network? But
yes,
to Eric's point, this is just stupid. Because at the end of the day, you should have known this was a possibility. And even though you were on pay-per-view, why would you do anything to possibly ruin this? Now, that being said, it could just be simply clear as WWE went for a deal and said, oh, hey, you want to do this? And they're like, oh, we can get WWE, even though it's NXT? It could be something like that, too. But they didn't help themselves.
To answer that question, they can both exist. Absolutely.
Yes. Absolutely.
It just depends on whether or not the WWE lets them both exist.
That's a big point. Right. So, yes. So I'll just jump to what I would like. All right. Again, as somebody who's a wrestling fan and cares for wrestling, in a perfect world, maybe negative into a positive. All right. you've done this cocaine spot. You don't want to do that. But maybe, all right, from 8 to 10 on a Tuesday, I would keep NXT on the same day, by the way. All right, you're on the CW. You have your show and everything like that. I would love if NWA was right after. If you did a block of wrestling and you did a later night edgier product and they could finish, and then, whatever after that, But I think I would love, I don't think WWE would like it, but if they were a lead-in for NWA to help that show get over, I think it'd be great.
What if, and this is just a what if, you keep NXT on the same night? Because you got to do that. I agree with you. If you change nights, that's the worst thing you can ever do to any product is change nights and put it on a different night because you lose followers.
If you're on a Saturday, I can see where you may want to go to a different day. But yes, for the most part, right.
But speaking of Saturdays, here's a funny thing that I was going to suggest. NWA, get back to your roots. Put them on Saturday for CW. Put a morning show together, like the old one that used to be on first thing in the morning for the NWA. And then Saturday night's main event comes back. Not Saturday's main event. Saturday night's wrestling comes back for NWA. Let's go with a 6:05 start time. Let's have a little bit of fun on Saturday nights with a little NWA action.
I went with, hey, let's do a block of wrestling on Tuesday. You're going, let's go old school. Let's do it Saturday. I say let's do all of it, man. Who
does the NWA aim towards the most? People with nostalgia and people that are old school. And that's why I'm thinking put them on Saturday night.
6:05. I like that.
6:05. You could, instead of even doing the Saturday morning one, do a 2-hour block on the CW. What do they have between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock on a freaking Saturday night on the CW that's not going to do better ratings? That's going to do better ratings than the NWA.
Yeah, I mean they do have that Billy Corgan reality show they want to do too. You could do that after WWE.
Do an hour of the NXT and then do the Billy Corgan freaking show either after that or do it after the WWE.
At 6:05 on Saturdays. Yeah, I would like that.
Or you could always do it as a lead-in. Do the freaking Billy Corgan first. If you think it's going to bring bigger ratings, do the Billy Corgan reality show first, and then put the wrestling right afterwards, and people will continue on into it.
It's an interesting thought process. I guess what me and AJ are trying to say is that we love pro wrestling, and the idea, like, hey, make CW a pro wrestling channel. Like, why not?
Well, the other thing that we're saying is CW. If you need us for programming, we're here.
Absolutely. I don't honestly, we're kind of like having a little fun with this, and we'd like to see this, and we know it's not really likable, or I should say, not really possible. No. Not probable, I should say. But
like I said, it's all up to the WWE saying, yeah, I don't mind these guys being there.
Which I'm also going to say too, networks don't always do this. They don't just flood things with pro wrestling. But NXT is probably going to be the highest rated show on the CW, period. You know what I mean? Why not make pro wrestling a destination?
Yeah, I would like to say one thing, and this is just from me. This has nothing to do with the Working Fans podcast. As far as I'm concerned, fuck Fox. If you're not back in wrestling, you're not getting my support. I won't watch the NFC on there anymore. I won't watch anything on Fox. You can go to hell.
All right. Well, hey, fuck Fox. You heard it here first, folks. But that'll do it for this segment today. But I do want to. We did have a question here that wasn't related to these two topics. Why is AEW's attendance down? Randy's asking. AJ, what do you think? I just think maybe
is he talking about viewership or is he talking about attendance at the shows?
I think it's about live attendance right now.
All right, so live attendance at the shows. When it was at its peak, let's talk about its peak.
Yep.
When it was at its peak, there are two times that it was at its peak. One is when it was something new that had Cody Rhodes, the Bucks, Kenny Omega. Their fans were following it. Everything was going according to. The other peak was CM Punk coming to town. You've got this shock value. Well, CM Punk's gone.
Yeah.
The Bucks are almost never on TV except for to come and argue with Kenny. Cody Rhodes is in a different organization. So all of those hardcore fans that you had at the beginning, what are they watching for now?
Right.
They're watching and don't get me wrong, I still love AEW. I still enjoy watching it.
Absolutely.
But it's a watered down product to where it was
originally
years ago.
Yeah. Or just a completely different product, maybe watered down.
Yeah, watered down's a little tough. It's a different product. We watch it because we love wrestling, and it still has great wrestling on there. But
Absolutely.
it is a different product than it was when you had those numbers. Hell, a lot of those numbers were before COVID.
Look at this. We got some questions here. How about Vince McMahon selling 2 shares?
Well, if he only sold 2 shares, that would be fine. But he sold 8.5 million shares, which is a completely different story.
Yeah. Is it sour grapes? He has no actual control anymore. Maybe, but it's also getting paid.
Yeah, he's also 100 years old. He might just be selling shares to get his affairs in order so the world is rid of him.
Yeah, he's ready to cash out, I think, at some point here.
Yeah.
But
he's moving down to Florida with a couple bimbos and calling it a day.
I don't know what he's gonna do. I really don't. I can't picture him not in wrestling. Well, all right. I think that's gonna about do it for this week.
Dude, there's other news. Don't end it now. It's only 12:17. Let's talk some wrestling, motherfucker. Come on.
All right, fine.
Jesus Christ. Well, you don't want to talk anything about what's going on in AEW? Let's talk about the devil
mask. Who's on the
who's under the devil mask? Let's take some shots. Randy Oscar, you still there in the comments? Who's under the devil mask, Randy?
This is for Joe. Is there any excitement in the New Japan Lone Star Shootout show tonight? I haven't got to
I can't even tell you who's in it, unfortunately.
He did tell me that with Speedball tonight, who's been killing it. So
yeah, that's I thought producer Joe's up in Maine doing a speedball. But that's a whole nother thing. We've got Mariah May just signed with AEW. Anybody who's familiar with Stardom, I know I'm the only one who watches Stardom, but anybody who's familiar with Stardom, she's been a tremendous champion there. She's actually a very good wrestler. She's along the lines of a Toni Storm, so it's ironic that they're actually bringing her in because she actually came into New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stardom right as Toni was leaving both of them. So there has really been that follow through.
She is kind of reminded me of a Mickey James type gimmick with the what do you call it? With Trish Stratus.
Trish Stratus. Yeah, no, I can see where you would forget Trish Stratus. It's very similar to that gimmick. The difference is Toni Storm is one of the best female workers on the planet, and Mariah May is also an incredible worker.
Well, those two I think what you were talking about earlier is that Mariah May has organically, unintentionally, and it's following Toni Storm from promotion to promotion afterwards. So
and for once, Tony Khan's sitting there and actually paying attention to something and going, "Hey, this works perfect." Oh yeah, way to protect yourself, Joe. If you just let it go, nobody's actually going to assume you're doing speedballs. But when you come to defend it and go, no, I'm not doing speedballs, everybody's going to know you are. It's fine.
The trees are lovely, though. All right, folks. We don't know who's under that devil. Let's take it. Okay, before we get out of here, who do you think's under the devil mask? Take a guess.
If I had to guess, I had a smart person tell me this week, and they gave me a very well educated guess, and I'm going to go with it. I think it's Dr. Britt Baker.
That's right. I suggested that. Yes, that was something.
That doesn't sound right. It was someone smart who knows something.
Yeah. I was talking about possibly Adam Cole in the long run too, but I have to say somebody brought up a good point. I think it was on Wrestling Observer. Adam Cole's actually supposed to be out for 9 months, though. Are they
there's no way they're waiting 9 months for this to come to fruition. That's I do think it could be Britt Baker, being like, "Hey, you stole my boyfriend." You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
The more I thought about that, she could actually very much do that angle. That's you stole my boyfriend. Yeah, Nick Nemeth, absolutely not. He could be one of them, though. I mean, he's definitely built like one of those guys. Let's hope it's not Ryan Nemeth.
Right.
There were a lot of releases. There's a lot of people that it could be. That's Wardlow's also. Roderick Strong's definitely one of the people that it could be also. I just love the idea of Britt Baker being the devil. There's so many places that you could be in there, and to have her leading a faction. What if Roderick Strong is one of the guys under the masks? The Kingdom is under the masks, and then there's a fourth person, and Britt Baker's the devil. So she's got all of these people that are supposedly friends with Adam Cole, and her and these guys feel like Max stole Adam Cole from them, so they're all going after Max. And then when Adam Cole comes back in 9 months, he can actually be like, wait a minute, I didn't send these guys after you.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. There's a couple of different ways they could go with it. I would be a big fan of a lot of those scenarios for sure. But I'll tell you who it's probably not.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling lives.